Welcome. I'm Janine Pettit, Girl Camping ambassador, blogger, adventurist, and editor in chief of Girl Camper magazine. I'm here today up in South Dakota with my friend Lisa, VP of Girl Camper, and my co host on the show. We're getting ready to head out to Utah to raft the Green River. I'm having a great time here. But we're here to talk to Ali Rasmussen today from Spacious Skies Campground. I am enjoying my summer of freedom, summer of love, summer of everything, summer of campfires, summer of s'mores at my seasonal site at Spacious Skies down in New Jersey. But there are 14 other locations that you all can choose from. And Allie's going to come on today to talk about how she and her husband became the unlikely owners of a chain of campgrounds. Stay tuned. Welcome, friends. I am so glad to introduce you to Ali Rasmussen, who is the founder of Spacious Skies Campground, along with her husband. I've had the pleasure of meeting her in person many, many times, and I have the pleasure of having my camper at your beautiful site in Country Oaks, Spacious Skies Country Oaks in New Jersey. I'm enjoying it so much. I'm not going to rave and rave about it now because I'm going to tell everybody about seasonal camping later on. I would love to hear your story because when I first became aware of you, I was fascinated. I'm like, I think everyone who camps, and especially people like me who are camping at another level because they're creating things in the campground world, has this idea in their head is I love to own a campground someday. And then when I heard about you and that you had zero background in camping, and then ended up buying a campground and then another and are building this beautiful empire of Spacious Skies campgrounds all over the country. I'm just like, I wanna know how you got there. So, Allie, that was a long intro, but welcome to the show,
Oh,
and thank you for coming on and sharing all of your ideas, schemes, the future plans. I can't wait to hear them.
yes. Janine, thank you so much for having me on the show. When I learned about Girl Camper, which was before we met, I connected so deeply with your mission because I am a girl camper, newish, to the realm in the RVing sense. But I just, we connect philosophically. So just
Yes.
thanks for having me.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, absolutely. I just want you to start out by telling us your own girl camper story. We always say every
yes,
girl camper has a story. Yours is a little different than most.
yeah,
So
that's
tell us
right.
things.
That's right, and while, Eric, my husband and, partner in crime, are relatively new to this, RV campground space, we both grew up, very outdoorsy, did, like, very real camping, and you and I have talked about I mean,
Uh-huh.
I quote, unquote, "real," but you and I have talked about the evolution of one as a camper, like, throughout
Yeah.
their lives, right? So,
Uh-huh.
we had an outdoorsy background, we met in business school, we knew that we were going to do something together someday, but that, that what it was had not materialized yet. And so
Uh-huh.
we got married and we have three kids. And Eric was in real estate development at the time, and I was after business school and after starting my career up. We had our children, and I stayed home for the first 5 years with them
Uh-huh.
and 2020 comes around, COVID changes everybody's lives. And, Eric is not going into the office anymore. He can work anywhere there's Wi Fi. So we had been reading about people purchasing RVs and hitting the road. And we thought, well, that sounds like something that we would be interested
Yeah.
in doing. We bought an RV like rig unseen. He went to down to the dealership after like talking over the phone with somebody about what
Uh-huh.
we would want, this or that. He comes home with a trailer, and 2 days later we are on the road for our first camping trip. And our kids were 5, 2, and 8 months old at the time.
Oh my
We
God.
were flying by the seat of our pants. I mean, like we set that thing up in 2 days thinking that it was ready to
Yeah.
go, and
Yeah,
of course
yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't, right? We
Well,
get on the road and we, took it one day at a time. We downloaded, like, all of these, all of the apps that you know and love for planning
mhm,
your trips.
yeah.
We downloaded them all for the first time, and, like, an hour or 2 before we decided, each night, it'd probably be good to stop now. We would just pick a campground from one of those
Mhm.
apps and stay, like, with
And
no knowledge.
you probably could, because a lot of people were social distancing and that I think
Yes. It was
that was
early days.
before it kinda took over. Yeah,
Yes.
you could just book a campsite last minute.
That's right, that's right. It was late May of 2020 when we did that first trip. Um, we and we did about 30 or so nights that whole summer, broken up in
Mhm,
a few, like, big chunks,
mhm,
and, we, didn't realize it at the time, but we were doing, like, unintentional market research.
mhm,
Because we were so new to it all, we had no
mhm,
idea, like, where we were staying, what we were picking. We were just going, "Okay, we'll stay at this place." And then, "Okay, this is a state park. Oh, this is a private campground. This is a big brand. This is
mhm.
it's just whatever we showed up to. And, it just gave us this big picture view of what RV camping was. And, we were sitting around a campfire one of those early night, and we had just put the kids to bed. I actually think it was, like, at a KOA in Pennsylvania, and we were looking up, at the stars, at the spacious
Mhm.
skies above us, and, we seriously, we both thought, like, we looked at each other and said, "Why don't we do this? Like, why don't we share this
Mhm.
with as many people as we can?" Because it was, so quickly, not to say that it wasn't chaotic with especially 3 kids and
Oh, yeah.
especially
Yeah.
all the learning curve that was going on, but, like,
Yeah.
we felt instantly how important it was for us as a family and
Mhm.
how life-changing it was to have these moments and have these experiences
What did you
with our
think it was
kids.
bringing? What did you think it was bringing to your family? This always interests me that it can't be replicated at home because I think the answer to that is different for everybody, but
Yeah.
what was happening when you were out there that you were unable to attain in your home life?
That's such a great question. I think, um, one thing was, like, the adventure itself, leaving
Mhm,
home and going and
mhm,
experiencing and putting your eyes on something different. Camping in general gives you access to, like, places that not even, like, a hotel like, it just
mhm,
you have we had a campsite right on the beach, and that was, like,
mhm,
fantastic to us. That was so different. Or campsite on a river or a stream or just deep in the
mhm,
mature forest where you can
mhm.
smell nature all around
Right.
you. It was just these experiences that you simply could not have at home that were, so special for our kids to be in. Even if they weren't gonna remember it specifically, they were
Mhm,
gonna remember, like, in their bodies, like, the feeling of doing something new, of learning, like, different terrain under their feet, or
mhm.
feeling like we're all experiencing something new together and, like, doing it with mom and dad. It
Yeah.
was just
And
it's
I think too
bonding.
I think too, my recollection as a kid who grew up camping, we camped every single summer. I look back at it now and I go, "Well, there was camping mom and dad, and there was home mom and dad." And
Yes.
camping mom and dad were way more fun.
Way
They
more
were way
fun.
more relaxed.
Uh,
And I think for my mom with 7 kids trying to keep a big house running, listen, she had just as much work at the campground as
yeah.
as she did at home, but somehow in that small compact kitchen when there's not as many options and you
Mm,
just I don't
mm.
know. Oh,
It
I
is a
look back on it and
subtlety.
yeah.
The simplicity of it all, you're right, when you pull away, like, all of
Mhm.
the options that you have at home, and you're just, like, it curated experience, whether you wanna,
Yeah.
call it that or not,
Yeah.
but it is easier to relax in.
So you and Eric sat
Yeah.
there and you looked at the spacious skies and maybe even not being able to fully articulate it at that time, you were thinking to yourself, this is pretty cool. Like I'm
Mm.
imagining that you guys were finding your sweet spot together. Like your
Yes.
two sets of experiences were coming together in this thing that you kind of knew you were going to do, but weren't
Yeah.
quite sure about.
That's exactly right. Like, Eric was coming from a real estate background,
Mhm,
so as far as, like, the transactional nature
mhm,
of buying and selling real estate and all that, like,
mhm,
that's his wheelhouse, and that's what a campground is. And then my background is in, just, like, all of the creative art, sort of. So,
mhm,
undergrad degree was in classical voice. I thought I was
mhm,
going to be an opera singer. That did not end up being the case because and then I, in business school was on like the marketing track. And so,
mhm.
that was where I was coming from, was sort of like knowing what the individual is looking for and like what is an appealing,
I think,
experience
yeah,
to,
for
uh, yeah,
it
to
that must
share.
be a really complementary set of skill sets, for
Eh,
the 2 of you. Like, I was watching that comedian the other day, Nate Bargatze, he goes like,
oh, yes.
"Can't be 2 fun people in the marriage, you'll be homeless in a week."
True. It's so
I'm
true.
like, say, "We're not buying a hot,"
Yes.
so
Yes. Yes.
so, like, having that yin and yang and coming together and being a couple, where did that go from to actually purchasing, the idea of purchasing a campground? And how did
Yes.
you find your first campground?
So we found our first campground by, Eric starts hoofing it, right? Like he's still
Mhm.
working
Oh,
his
he's
real
digging
job,
in.
but he's ready to go because between the two of us, I mean, yes, we're both entrepreneurs, but like he is the
Yeah,
entrepreneurial spirit of I mean, he's driving it. So
yeah.
he immediately finds a broker who we have worked with many times. She's wonderful, Mia Johnson.
Mhm,
And he reaches out to her, and we get queued into a campground that is being, sold in Maine, in Southern Maine, not by the beaches or anything. I mean, like, it was a real, like, starter campground. And we, start looking into it. We even visited that summer. We actually left the kids home for that camping trip, but we went and we took a was what we did for our wedding anniversary that year, was go and tour a campground for sales. And
mhm. To me.
does. It was great. But we sort of like, stalled a little bit. And then we heard that it was under contract, and it was like, okay, well, that, I guess, it wasn't meant to be. But then December, we hear that the contract fell through and that the campground was available again. And so then it was off to the races. That felt like the
Mhm,
time that we needed. And so we started by raising, funds from, like, a small, friends and family, uh,
mhm.
raised, and it was mostly people that, like, we knew from business school and whatnot. We had 13, people agree to be investors of this crazy idea.
Yeah.
The brand Spacious Skies Campgrounds was always a part of it. We always knew that it was
Mhm.
going to be like a collection. And we always knew
Okay.
that we're going to have a brand that stood for certain things and that
Mhm,
represent certain, like, consistency. So that was part of what we had people believe in and believe in
mhm,
us. And it was a it's a tiny little campground, tiny little raised, hoofed it with all those people. We end up, we get to the finish line, closing the week before Memorial Day, 2021.
wow.
Um, it was a crazy time to close. We've closed on crazier days though after that, but we had
Mhm,
thought that we were going to have a third-party management company run
mhm,
our campgrounds.
mhm,
Um, we had identified one that, we'd been working with for months and months, and the day of the closing was getting nearer, and Eric and I were both sort of feeling like something was off, and we couldn't really. I
mhm,
mean, there were a few things we could have put our finger on, but at that point, you're just like, full steam ahead. Like, what are you going to do?"
mhm.
So for the closing, I went up to Maine, and I was going to be there, like, sort of ceremoniously, because
Mhm.
especially in those days, you could close. That was when virtual closings began,
Yeah,
right?
because COVID, height of COVID.
That's right. And so Eric stays in New Jersey with our 3 kids, and I go up to Maine, and I was gonna be there for the closing and meet the staff, and then I was gonna maybe stay at our, comp in
Yeah.
the area. I show up on that day, and I realize that there is nobody, coming to work the campground. They had not sent anybody,
Mm.
and
Because
they
it had been closed for the season, right? And it
oh,
hadn't reopened yet for spring.
no, it was open. It was open.
In
It was
in Maine
running.
in the winter? Wow,
It was
okay.
May. It was May. It
Oh,
was it
okay,
was Memorial Day week. Oh, yeah.
okay.
And the sellers were prepared to, train whoever was gonna be working the campground
Yeah.
on all of the infrastructure and the systems and
Mhm.
whatnot before we changed them over. But since there was nobody else to train, I was saving face. I said, "Oh, this is how it's supposed to be. This is
Yeah.
what we meant to do the whole time. I'm here to be trained, and I am here to work the
Alright,
campground."
yeah,
And you have to
yeah.
so, like, I'm trained on well, of course, all the systems in the office. He trains me on, the water systems, the electric system, the septic system. We had seasonal guests on water electric sites, so he trains me on the honey wagon and on the tractor and all of
Oh
that.
my god. How
And
long were you up there then?
we
Oh my god.
but I called Eric that day and I said, "Eric, I'm not coming home."
Yeah,
And we did not know when I was going to be able to come home.
yeah.
Long story short, eventually that company does send a manager and a staff member, acceptable enough for me to leave
Mhm.
because it just was not like that's not
Yeah.
where my
Mhm,
highest and best use was going to be.
mhm.
So also during that time that I was up there, Eric got it was fate almost, a call from somebody who was, checking a reference on someone that used to work for Eric, and by the end of that call, we had secured our first, like, real capital partners. It was a family office out of New York City, and
Wow.
he had brought them in to our vision, and
Mhm.
so it made it, a lot easier for us to, buy the other campgrounds that year because we didn't have to, hoof it so much.
So when I hear about how quickly, I mean, this is only 4 years ago,
3? 3 and a half. 3 and 2 months. Yes.
and you have 15 locations now.
Mhm.
And so when I think about it, here you are, you go from closing, I mean, how does this work? What's a
Yeah.
honey track? To like 3.5 years later, having investors, having the staff that you have, and
Yeah.
purchasing more while you're trying to figure out the first one. Like, where did the second, third one come in? And
Well, like I
how did you
said, it
start
was
them?
it was always going to be a collection. It was always going to be
Okay.
more than one, and that is because of just sort of like the economics of it. If Eric and I
Mhm,
even wanna have a chance of, like, making something at the end of the day, it's not gonna
mhm.
be on
With a
one
single one.
campground that he and I do not work ourselves, you know what I
Mhm,
mean? And again, it's not that that wasn't the dream. The dream was
mhm,
Spacious Skies Campground, this thing that
mhm.
is bigger
Right.
than
Mhm,
ourselves. And
mhm.
so, I mean, by the time we closed on campground number 1, we already had 2, 3, and 4 in under contract. So this train had left the station.
Right.
It had, and but after I mean, we thank the experience that we had with campground number 1 because that laid the foundation for how we
Mhm,
have built our own property management company
mhm.
and how we built like the systems and the set of values that we have in how we run a campground and
Right.
how we lead a team uh because of just simply even
Mhm.
having that like 3-week hands-on experience that I got to have like I
Right.
know what I'm referring
You had
to
to
on
do that.
that's
You so
yes
did you pivot from the idea of having a third party management company to creating your own in-house?
immediately on that day. It
Yeah.
was, "Oh, plan A failed. Gotta go to
Yeah.
plan B."
And
On that very
so
day.
this is what I always think about. I always go online to the website Campgrounds for Sale. I always like to look at them. But I'll tell you something. I personally have no interest in big, giant mega thing. I'm
Yes.
always looking for some broken down old
Yeah,
camp
us
that you
too.
yeah, like, so how did you find them?
find our campgrounds in a variety of ways. We have great relationships with many of the brokers that are
Mhm.
out there. We have been introduced by other campground owners who have sold us their campground and then have another friend who's
A
interested in
friend,
selling.
yeah.
Um, we've even had seasonal guests of a campground who sees, the direction
Mhm.
that it's going, reach out to us and say, "Hey, I think that this would be a great campground to be a spacious campground.
Mhm.
Would you
Mhm.
come, talk to the owner?"
Mhm.
So we make sure that we are. It's all about relationships. I mean, that's like a cliche,
Right.
right? Real estate,
Yeah.
but it
And
really
your husband's background was in that. I mean, no
yes.
one's in a real estate broker without knowing that.
Th- it's true.
It's
It's
the
true.
number one thing.
That's right. That's right. So, like, if we hear of, I mean, we keep our finger on the pulse, but there have been
Mhm.
occasions like our Savannah location. That was the
Mhm.
the last one that joined the collection. We heard we'd been tracking it. We heard that it was under contract. We heard it fell out of contract, and
Mhm.
then our director of finance, who's a Savannah boy, we sent him down the day that we found out that the contract fell through. He
Mhm.
met with the sellers, and there was a ton of competition for this great
Mhm.
campground, but because we, like, showed how much it, like, mattered.
Initiative, you got down, yeah.
Yes.
And it
We
didn't hurt to have the local boy.
it did not hurt to have the local boy, but we can all, I've had so many sellers cry on my shoulder. I've had so
Mhm.
many, campground owners tell me about, like, their life's work and why it's so important. And I am, like, not only willing to have those conversations, but I want to. I want to know the
Mhm.
history of these campgrounds because
Right.
we're coming in as the next, like, caretakers of them.
Right.
And I don't think that a lot of other I know that that is not everybody's instinct who
Mhm.
is creating a portfolio of campground.
Mhm.
And it's important to us.
So you went and you from the get-go, it wasn't just Spacious Skies Maine, it was always gonna be that you were gonna build a brand and you were gonna
Yes.
build this portfolio. When you were out there doing your unintentional market research, what is that you saw that you wanted to bring to the industry that maybe wasn't there? I mean, how did you plan to
Yeah,
differentiate Spacious Skies from other chain,
for
the
sure.
larger? Yeah.
So I think that, and I think on the surface, we were not seeking to reinvent too much of the wheel. We
Mhm.
saw a huge spectrum of campgrounds that exist already out there. The very,
Mhm.
very super rustic type of experience where you don't even have sewer, maybe you don't even have, a hookup at all, to, massive, glitzy RV resorts where
Mhm.
it's not about, like, nature. It's about something else, which is lovely, which is
Mhm.
great. You need that sometimes. We wanted to focus on what we appeared to connect to as a family the most, which was
Mhm.
a connection to nature, knowing that you are still camping, knowing that you still have nature around you versus
Mhm.
everything a concrete pad, everything perfectly lit up, all of that. So we knew that
Mhm.
that was something that we wanted our brand to stand by. Um, we wanted to make sure that, of course, we had all the, creature comforts that one usually expects, but to
Mhm.
not have to think that, if we don't have a big water park and can compete with Great Wolf Lodge or, like, other
Mhm.
things that are adjacent, we knew that we were going to stay sort of like a simple, accessible experience.
Mhm.
We always knew that, like, a variety of ways to stay was going to be a
Mhm.
part of it. So, like, I'm saying all of these things that are, like, not reinventing the wheel, but what we sort of intangibly wanted to
Mhm.
create about the Spacious Skies brand was, like, something that, made you want to feel like you were, like, going to be a part of something if you camped at Spacious Skies.
I'm gonna
That
tell
you
you that you accomplished
I'm
that.
so glad to hear that, and to very intentionally, like, make sure that we were not, catering to or excluding any
Mhm.
kind of person. We wanted to be we wanted to envelop like as many
Yeah.
kinds of campers and as many kinds of people as
Mhm.
possible. And that was deliberate from the get-go. And the name Spacious Skies, like, that's where that comes from.
Mhm.
It is a patriotic poem, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
America the Beautiful, "Oh, beautiful for spacious skies."
Yeah.
2020 was, you know, a year in a string of years of it continues, right, of a nation divided and
Polarizing. Yeah.
polarizing, right? But there is something that almost every American can get down with, and that is the love of the land.
Mhm.
And the love of the land is as diverse and as varied as the things in that poem. Amber Waves of Grain, Purple Mountain Majesty,
I love that. Yeah, I
all of
love those
that.
lyrics.
But
Right.
what is shared by
Mhm.
everything are the
Yeah.
spacious skies above it all.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that is symbolic of what we mean and what we intend to do, which is inclusive, super inclusive.
Mhm.
And I'm glad to hear that
Well,
it
I
conveys.
love that, and I do see that at the Spacious Skies where I am blessed to have a seasonal site, and I had so much fun last weekend on Wild West weekend.
Yeah,
Now, empty nesters, we don't have kids there, man. We got our super soakers. I ordered them from Amazon. Our little friendly spirit animals down on the parent end by us, hooked us in, set us up with some good buckets, and we were down there on the end bringing other people's kids and getting drenched in return, and
I love
but,
it.
we were all standing there talking, and, I mean, I really felt very, emotional about it because I remember when I was a kid, campground mom and dad would do that.
Yeah.
Campground mom and dad were throwing buckets of water at their if you did that at home, I can't bring this up, and it was yeah, so it was permission to have fun,
Yes.
um, but I'll tell you something that I've noticed, and I'm only speaking for Spacious Skies Country Oaks, but I know this is a philosophy with you guys. I just got a text message from Sadie saying, about the film and flick. So
Yeah.
there's a float and flick. Everybody is watching a movie in the pool. So it's 96 degrees. They're show a movie, can float in the pool. How many people need a ride to the fireworks? Please text back so we know how many wagon rides we're gonna have to make. That
Yeah.
kind of thing going on. Listen, I'm at that campground and I hear kids laughing, playing, and it's like music to my ears, even though
Yeah.
mine are gone, right? And
Yeah.
hopefully they come and camp there. But there is sort of a philosophy that exists in your brand, in your industry, where if Sadie texts, "Please, everybody remember 5 miles an hour," friendly reminder,
Mhm.
please and thank you,
Mhm.
where there's a standard, but you're not beating people over the head with rules, rules, rules,
Yep.
and so
Yep.
you want to do the 5 miles an hour because somehow these kids become your kids too. When you're
Yes.
there at the campground, you
Oh,
want
yeah.
everybody to be safe. But I notice a way that your staffers, interact with the people there, like, you feel like a guest. You
Yes.
feel like a guest. I
Yeah.
feel like a guest there, but somehow you're a guest that's family. You know when you have a family wedding
Yeah.
and you're not family, but you're that girlfriend that's a cousin, you're that girlfriend everybody calls aunt. You kinda feel like you got on the inside track there,
Yes.
but you're special.
Yes.
So
Yes.
whenever I'm there, I think I've gotta ask Allie this, right? Because you can't be so lucky that everybody you hire just happens to be that shiny apple. I think you're shining the apple. Well, how are you shining the apples in your whole company? Because nobody gets that lucky with staff.
Well, I don't know because we have some phenomenal staff members and the general managers, our regional director. I mean, like all the way up to headquarter team members. I do feel so lucky that we have just amassed this incredible team of creative, smart, super smart,
Yeah.
just dedicated people. But we start every like first interview laying out like a lot of truth and a lot of just like transparencies we're very transparent about like, what we stand for as far as like
Mhm.
inclusion and
Mhm.
diversity and who our partnership groups are. That is
Mhm.
laid out on the table right away. It is also
Mhm.
laid out on the table that we are a brand and we are really, working hard to become established and known more and more. But we are building. We are in year 3. We are not Marriott. We are not KOA.
Mhm.
We're not a decades old company that has all of these systems and
Mhm.
safety nets in place. We are creating those right now. And so you come and you join this team knowing that you are bringing your own individual entrepreneurial spirit, which
Mhm.
is another thing that we really highlight. Like, I cannot be on every campground. I cannot be the
Mhm.
person like infusing culture and creativity and all of it
Right.
myself. So part of our culture is like not even just encouraging, but like requiring that everybody bring their like personal creativity
Mhm.
to their campground and what
Mhm.
they are running. And so every Spacious Skies campground where there is like consistency of service and all of that,
Mhm.
I mean, there's also so much that is unique, not just the terrain or not the state that you're in
Mhm.
the town, whatever, but of the management style and of like what that unique individual is bringing
Mhm.
to the camper's experience. And so I think when you get to
I see
do
that.
that,
Yeah.
like,
I
that's
think personally, when people give you creative outlet, you're gonna do your job so much better. Nobody
yeah,
wants to just go in there and rubber stamp somebody else's ideas.
that's right.
So
That's right.
when you get to go there and, we had a fun bingo game, and I had 45 girl campers come down there for a weekend in June, and we had a charity, bingo game to
Yeah,
raise money for a foundation we work with, a not-for-profit. And Sadie was nice enough to invite all the people at the campground, and we had 2 full tables full of campers who came and raised money with us, but
love it.
there is definitely, there is something going on there, and I think it has to do with the way you share your vision with your team, and they share it with their people, and it's all a wonderful kind of cohesion of ideas and,
Yeah,
freedom to implement them. We
yes.
only have a few minutes left, but I have to ask you because I look at you and I go, my God, in 3.5 years you've come. Do you have any more in the hopper that you're gonna close on? And where do you see yourself with Spacious Skies 10 years from now?
So we are starting to build our pipeline up, and that may come in a couple different forms. We've only done straight acquisition to date,
Mhm,
which we're totally like looking into, but we're also exploring some other creative partnerships with people
mhm,
that currently own a campground, but
mhm,
it, there's something that we can add as a partner, and so
mhm.
we may be sort of like managing and even adding our brand
Maybe as
in
an
sort of
affiliate?
as almost like an early example of like what our franchise could look
Mhm,
like.
mhm,
Uh, we would love to be able to partner with other campground owners that share our philosophies, but would
mhm,
like to plug into a
mhm,
brand, into a system for that additional support, and that's like something that we have been
mm,
working on exclusively since our last campground purchase last
mhm,
April. So I think that 10 years from now, I hope that we have we have national ambition. And
mhm,
whether that means we're going to, own a portion or have franchise partners,
mhm,
that's what we see the future being is planting more Spacious Skies
mhm,
flags and spreading this type of philosophy, this type of
mhm,
experience to camping. And again, I just want to like really highlight that like we intend to always be a super accessible form of camping, like in price, in ability to get a reservation, and in if you're brand new to the experience, making sure that like our teams are trained to help you
mhm,
with your first camping trip,
mhm.
which we celebrate as maiden voyage. I don't know if you've seen our little signs when someone has their maiden voyage, but
Oh, I have not seen
oh,
that.
no. Yeah, we celebrate when
For
somebody's camping
someone
for the first time. Yeah.
oh, I
Um,
we had several maiden voyage
oh,
people down at Spacious, but we didn't know to tell them, so next time, we'll have to.
yes. Yeah, oh, totally.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that, national aspirations
I
and
love it.
more spacious
Yeah.
skies campgrounds.
Allie, I feel like there's so much left that we didn't get to talk about. I wanna have you back because I wanna talk about the changes that are taking place in camping, how so many of the campgrounds are adapting similar policies that, hotels have,
Yes.
charging fees to lock in a site and
Yes.
surge pricing and just things that we see across the industry and
Yeah.
changes that are happening in the industry. And I want to have you back and talk about, you know, I would love to just give our audience a different point of view. So
Mm,
sometimes we see things online and people go, I don't understand why they do that. I want you to come online and tell them why they do that.
I
So
I
maybe,
would be happy to.
maybe
Yes.
we'll do it. Ask Allie a question and
Oh, yeah. Oh,
that would be fun. Yeah.
it would
Ask
be.
ask a campground owner, a question,
Yeah.
how
A little AMA.
Allie, I'm just having so much fun at my little spacious site. And another thing we should talk about when we meet up again is this whole idea of seasonal camping. It's changed my world.
Yeah.
And I looked at it from the outside for so many years and thought that's
Yes.
not me. And now I realize it
No.
wasn't me at the time.
Mhm,
So it's
mhm.
pretty cool, and we say at Girl Camper, there's no wrong way to camp like a girl, and I
That's
think you
right.
were sharing that earlier, like, there's no thing, nobody that should be excluded in any way from the camping experience, so
That's right.
no matter where you are, an absolute newbie or a lifetime, camper, we wanna find a way, whether you're tent camping or renting something to make you feel welcome at the campground, and
That's
Spacious
right.
Skies is doing that, and I love being part of it, so,
Well,
thank you
I am
for
delighted to have you be one of our
uh,
beloved guests. Like, it's
oh,
just the coolest. It's the coolest.
it
Janine
is
from Girl Camper is a Spacious Skies camper.
yeah, we are we're having a blast with you guys, and so, thank you so much for coming on the show. Enjoy your weekend. You're at your friend's beach house down there,
Yeah.
and it looks like so much fun, and I know it's hot as heck down there. It's 67 here in Custer, South Dakota, so you
Yes.
enjoy their hot
Thank
weekend
you.
and, get some sun in the beach.
I will. I
We'll
will.
talk to you
Thank you.
soon.
Enjoy yourself
Okay,
too.
take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that's our show for today. I can't thank my guest, Ali Rasmussen, enough. I am enjoying my summer at the campground so much, so I encourage you to get out there, find a campground, especially a Spacious Skies near you, and get out there and enjoy the outdoors. If you like the show, if you want to share it with your friends, please like, hit subscribe, share with a friend, and get over and follow us on our Facebook group, on Instagram. Check out the Girl Camper website, maybe subscribe to the magazine, but be sure to tell all your friends about Girl Camper so they can go places and do things too. This is Janine Pettit. I'll see you next week.